Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Reviews with Tyberius D. And today we're going to be talking about one of the long-awaited things that people have been asking me to do, and that is the Star Wars movie Rogue One. Pretty much the one Disney movie that that Star Wars made, or that Disney has made since they took over Star Wars, that actually everyone, or at least most people, actually liked. I'm sorry, I'm looking for my other pen. I think I got rid of it. Anyway, without further ado, we're going to be getting into that, but I want to make sure that I, do all my nice intro things. So, if you are not familiar with me, I'm Tyberius D. I doubt this is going to be your first video. Something else would have probably picked it up. But you can definitely check out all the other things that I do. All the links down below. And that's not only on the bottom of your screen here, but also in the details there. On whether it's Twitch, whether it's YouTube, whatever you're watching me on, is that you can look at all the other stuff that I do, and it's wonderful. So anyway, I do want to thank all the wonderful people that enable me and support me and all the stuff that I do. So, for example here, gotta pull my stuff out real quick. I've got Fallen Hour, Andy Wagner, The West Dude, Julia, Ron Cleveland, Drew, Ace Man, Kamikaze, Samantha, and Leah have been huge sponsors for the community that are all part of my patrons crew that have spent at least $50 on me. And you can definitely check out all the stuff that I do. You can check out my Patreon. You can check out, my PayPal. All that stuff really helps out what I do. And I want to thank you guys for helping me out. So, without further on any of that, let's get into Star Wars, Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Holy crap, Tiberius, get your crap together. Anyway, so this movie came out, if I remember right, between the Force Awakens and the Last Jedi, and it was the Star Wars movie for Star Wars fans. Now, is this movie S tier, A grade amazingness? Not necessarily. Its story is actually pretty solid. I don't think it's bad at all. But the problem that I have is that I've watched this, and it's now been a couple years since I've watched the movie. It's not a bad movie. I just haven't, rewatchability. It's not bad either. I just haven't got around to rewatching it yet, but it is good. So I can't remember all the characters, particularly the main character. But it's not to say that they haven't left a lasting impact on me. So let me get some of the parts that I want to get out of the way. The cinematography is beautiful. The special effects are great, and of course, I'm going to get this out of the way now. There are two scenes that have facial work when it comes to these characters. One is Grand Moff Tarkin, which has the actor who played the character has been long since dead, and he was digitally reconfigured, which on a level I feel like is a little insulting. I get why they wanted to do that, but this is why I don't like prequels and edits and all this stuff, is that, once you get to a point to where you get past where these characters are, the actors that played them are still alive, bringing them back from the grave is kind of lame. And it just kind of shows you, it's like, look, it's time to move on. It's time to do different stories. It's time to do new stories. I'm not sad that this movie exists, but putting characters in for the sake of putting characters in, not necessarily good, because the Empire is huge. The whole program going on with the construction of the Death Star is massive. And, just because Tarkin is a huge character within the Star Wars universe doesn't mean that he had to be there. There's always micromanagers and desk managers and mid-tier managers that you could easily have in there. And that's kind of what our main antagonist for this series is our Director Krennic. That's largely what he is, and what he does is that he is a mainstream antagonist. And he is a mid-level director. He's basically the one who is directly responsible for building the Death Star. And so his journey is a little interesting. But as far as the cinematography, the visual effects, is that getting into where we are, the two video scenes, one is about a quarter of the way through, maybe a third of the way through, when you see Grand Moff Tarkin, and you can tell there's a bit of uncanny valley there, but you can also tell that it's getting a lot better. Things are working out way more in favor of digital editing, and I don't think it's going to be too much further before it's the uncanny valley is going to be there anymore. Is that the digital process is getting way better. I remember seeing Tron Legacy all the way back in 2010, and you're just watching Clue which is that character who's digitally edited, and you're like, it looks a little weird, my guy. But I could see the technology and the progress was getting there, and holy crap if it's not getting a lot better here. So it's probably only a matter of time before that Uncanny Valley is largely gone, and this is the first movie where I started going, yeah, we're getting close. So it's going to be quite interesting. But anyway, there's the first scene. There's that one scene there. Then you also have the scene with Princess Leia. Apparently, it's weird, but like de-aging people is apparently harder than actually putting somebody's whole new face on, which is really strange and weird. And I don't know why that is. Maybe facial structures change as you get older. Maybe it's just easier to take a full rendering and overpull it. I don't know how this works. But Tarkin is actually more believable as his character than Leia is. A lot of people always complained about Leia being de-aged there, and we can also talk a little bit about just because The Mandalorian season 2 spoilers, but Luke Skywalker makes an appearance, and that was really cool. But he clearly didn't have nearly as much work done to him, and I'm kind of wondering if de-aging somebody is actually harder than just putting a full new render on somebody. But I don't think that these two scenes really ruin anything for me overall. The person who was playing Moff Tarkin does very well as that, and it's largely convincing. So the only thing is just if the actor's gone, maybe just have somebody else. Or I'm not opposed to being having recasts. Get somebody who looks alike. And as an example, I did a Doctor Who review. The person who they've recast the first Doctor like 3 times now. For special events, particularly the latest one, Twice Upon a Time, where they recast him, and it works. It's good, and I would just rather have that. You're like, hey, identify him by his name, get used to the new actor. Hey, maybe hire him on for new projects to do the regular voice and basically embody the character going forward. I don't like this half in, half out that people are trying to do, and so I'm sorry, but that is that's more of a commentary as far as the design process and the digital process of what we're doing, but just clarifying this, where we are, how I feel about all of it, is I wanted to add on to some of these things, let people know how I feel about the design process and the character process and all this, about all of these things that are going on within the creation of movies. Because 1, it's content, but 2, I don't think I'm going to stick this one out for a whole hour. Anyway, so yeah, would fervently like that the characters were recast. Now, de-aging is a different kind of cover story, and I believe this is right before Carrie Fisher had passed away. But it was very nice to see Carrie Fisher playing a young Leia, or at least I believe that she is. And if she's not, then somebody correct me. But I like that they're trying to kind of rehash the characters with the same actors. But maybe after watching Han Solo, which we're not talking about today, is that, I don't know. Sometimes maybe you should let a character die. Sometimes maybe you should let the old actor play. I don't know what the answer is, to be honest, because I've seen it where it works, and I've seen where it doesn't, and I'm not sure where one works better than the other. So yeah, I'll get off of that. Anyway, the general cinematography, one of the big things that I'm very happy with as far as Disney is that they can't de-age well at all after they hired that YouTuber that did it better than him. I heard that was a thing. Because apparently, this is what I've been told, and this is spoilers, but at the end, Mark Hamill was de-aged. It didn't look very good. They hired there was a YouTube video. But by the way, Wes, if you got the YouTube video out there, please send it to me. I want to watch it. But somebody de-aged Mark Hamill to look even better than what he did during that, and so they hired him to do this, which is fine and cool, which kind of largely implies that we're going to see a lot more Mark Hamill in Mandalorian Season 3, which would be cool. So yeah, but that's neither here nor there. We'll table that. Anyway, getting into... Ooh, thank you. Can I copy this? I guess I'll just open it. The Mandalorian deepfake. Fantastic. I'm just going to keep that off to the side. We'll look at that later. Anyway, get more. I loved Rogue One for the last half of it. Good to see you, Neo. It's good to see everyone starting to roll in from chat. Anyway, so, talking about the cinematography real quick. Cinematography is solid. I'm sorry I keep getting off on these side rants, but that's kind of what we do here sometimes. Anyway, I like the visuals of the story, of the of the movie. There is CGI, absolutely, but it's not overburdening. And you can kind of tell where there's a mix of practical effects and CGI. And this is the one thing I really credit the, if you will, the new Lucasfilm and Disney for doing, is that it's not the CGI clusterfuck that the prequels were in the 2000s with George Lucas. Is that a lot of this stuff looks more real, looks a lot more authentic, and having a blend of practical effects and CGI all together does make for better storytelling. You use CGI where you need it, you use practical effects where you need it. One of the weirdest things that I saw back during the 2000s was that they would have CGI fire. And I'm just like, well, why don't you just light a fire in the background? Is it that expensive and that problematic to have a fire going? Like, you might have to wait to get it stoked, I guess, but there's just things that drive me crazy about CGI. I generally wait until you start because the intro music is loud as fuck. That sucks. You know you can turn that down now, right? And I actually made it louder recently because a lot of people were like, oh, it's not loud enough. Can we just talk about how much better explosives and sand on a beach look compared to CGI explosions in episode 2? True. Anyway, so cinematography is absolutely beautiful. There's not a part of this movie outside of the facial changes that really take me out of it at all. And even with that, it's still pretty good. But there's nothing that looks bad. The costumes are great. The production just is great. I don't have a lot of bad to say about that. The CGI scenes are great. I'm sorry, I'm just literally repeating myself over, but at least in a whole nutshell is the movie is very beautifully made. It looks great, and I'm talking about this because I usually don't get into the production values on a lot of movies, and I really would like to. But it's just one of those deals where a lot of people make it out because the story is what is more important. But I can kind of wash through the story in like 10 minutes. So we'll table the cinematography. I think I made a point. The sound design is also very good. Everything sounds great, is great in that regard. But most of the time, there's very few movies anymore that I feel like, all right, yeah, the sound design's terrible or the cinematography is awful. Some are better than others, don't get me wrong, but at least generally when it comes to high-end budget Hollywood budget productions, the cinematography is always good, even if it's a shit movie, and the sound is usually pretty good. So we definitely have that here. All right, cool. Let's talk about the big thing. How's the story? How's the characters? How's the plot? Let's get into this. The characters are all pretty good. The problem with these characters is that they all get a little bit of screen time, which is really good. They all get some motivations and understanding, and they're all explored to some degree. It's to some level. They're all characters. Plenty with the main character, and I forget her name, and I apologize. Jyn Erso. Just came to me. Jyn Erso, main character. Memorable. I mean, it took me a second to pull it back, but once I got it. And she's a character. You understand her motivations, what's going on. You get into Galen Erso, which you largely understand as well. Pretty good character, pretty cool. You get into Cassian. I can't remember exactly what his full name is, but Cassian's a full character. You get the sense that he's been part of the rebellion for a while, and he's kind of a scumlord whenever you we're not talking about Solo. I'm just tabling that right now, Maury. But anyway, you get the Cassian's kind of a scoundrel because he just shoots a dude in the back like the first time you see him, and you're like, oh crap, this guy isn't the part of the rebellion that we're used to. But it paints a very human picture. He's very dark, but he also has goals and motivations of what he's trying to do, and his end will be very interesting. Let's see, you get. I don't remember all of these characters' names, and I do apologize. So the next one is that you have the Imperial Defector. You don't see him until like halfway or 2/3 into the movie, but you get a sense of who he is, what he's trying to do, and why he's defecting all this. And he also gets the tentacle monster onto him, and that was just freaky. Stop talking about Solo. Good God. All right, anyway. It's starting to piss me off. Anyway, so getting into this, yeah, the Imperial pilot that defects is a great character. We don't get enough screen time about him, but we understand he's defecting because he thinks it sucks, that the Empire sucks, bad things are happening, and that's not something he wants to, and it gives him a moral clarity as far as where he stands, and he gets in with some really bad people that make him question like his stance on that as well. I wish there could have been more exploration of this character, but you know, with a core cast of about 6, it was definitely something of itself. We'll talk about the android next. What is his name? The only reason I don't remember is because it's been a while, and I apologize. And I've only watched the movie like 3 times. But overall, the robotic character, the android, he is a robot. Yeah, full robot, absolutely great, good comic relief. He's played by the guy who's the funny character in Serenity, and he's been in a few other movies like Dark of the Moon and whatnot. But played by that guy, absolutely fantastic. Largely comic relief, but he does have some serious moments. K2SO, yes, thank you. That's where this is helpful. K2SO is absolutely a wonderful character. Granted, robot, so you can kind of play with that and how human you want to make that character or not. But comic relief is there; it's on point. But it's also that there's some really endearing moments, particularly with right before, or I'm sorry, getting onto Scarab. Is it Scarab? Scarrow? Scarrow's Doctor Who. Scarif. Scarif. Okay, is the planet that we're going to. Getting on a Scarif and K2SO, it really comes to shine because not only is he funny, but he's also very, he almost is human in a way. Not only in his self-sacrifice, but also in how he relates to Jyn Erso and how he kind of what's the word here? Dehumanizes her at the beginning, where he doesn't respect her, doesn't give her credit towards much of anything, but they build out a bond, and build out a connection to the point where the movie ends, and that's nice. So it's very good. I cannot remember the other 2 characters that are largely part of this plot as far as their names, but one of them is a blind. He is blind, and he has some kind of force powers. He's definitely force sensitive. Because he literally is dodging bullets just by not being able to see. But yeah, he's basically a Force monk, but he's not properly trained under the Sith or the Jedi. But he's very interesting as a character, and he's got some moments where he's funny. He's got some moments where he's very enjoyable to watch. But his character is largely the one of his character is largely one of, hey, I have a disability. I'm fine, but I will, I'm trying to make up for that in another way. And that's a great homage to the people that actually have disabilities, is that sometimes you can find other ways to get around it. Unfortunately, he has the force powers, which is a little overpowered, but you can definitely tell that there's some good stuff here as far as what's going on. It's like, wait, a blindfold? Wait, I'm already blind. I love that. But as a general level here, is that you definitely get the sense that he has found some kind of deeper understanding and deeper meaning within the universe himself. It's quite good as far as how this is portrayed. Could have been more, sure. Could have been less. But he's not bad. He gets his moments. He gets his time to understand them. And it's not bad that you get a core of 6 characters that you are freshly introduced to within one movie that you will be introduced to, and that you will at least some way to empathize with them, understand them, and like them. Now, the last character, also don't remember his name, but he is the character that actually is the most underserved out of the core cast, and that's the guy who goes around with a big giant gun. He's got a big old backpack on him. You get the sense that he's got some level of I don't know what's the word here. He's friends with the monk. They basically go around and they're a tag team duo. I don't think they're implied as lovers or anything like that. But what they largely are is they kind of both help each other out and keep each other together. And there's definitely some humanization of this character and how he relates to the monk, because he's always kind of helping him out because the monk is blind. But also, it's largely implied, at least to me, that the monk gives him a lot of meaning in his life. So at least all together in this is that, at least for me, is that these characters are played well. The only problem is that you don't really understand a lot of... I don't remember a lot or understand a lot of young guy's motivations. He's kind of implied that he's just kind of picking around for the monk as his friend, but you don't understand why they're friends. You don't understand why that came about and what his obligation is to maintaining that particular friendship. So could have been better, could have been worse, but this is the only character that I found really lacking. Shout out on side characters. Galen Erso, even though he's more of a side character and he's not actually part of the core ensemble, is that he is a great character. And he's actually quite shown to be fully capable in his own right, as far as like what of his motivations are and what's going on in his life and why he's doing what he's doing. And you definitely get that. So you might even want to add him to the core ensemble. We already talked about the antagonist, Director Krennic, which is pretty solid. He's not one-dimensional per se, but he is a little bit two-dimensional. He's basically just greedy and prideful. He wants to be seen. I don't know what we're talking about. What you're talking about? I assume that you're maybe talking about Rogue One. I don't know who the Asian girl is, so I'm just gonna tag that because I mean, I hate to embody people by their race. I definitely try to remember like who the characters are. If you're talking about the black guy role, I assume you're talking about Saul Guerrero. I don't have a clue what he's talking about. Anyway, Saul Guerrero is a very interesting character. I gave him a bit of a shout out. Okay, yeah, that's The Last Jedi, and that's absolutely terrible. We don't talk about The Last Jedi here. I will eventually doing a review trashing out the shreds, but let's stay on Rogue One, please, for God's sakes. Anyway, Rogue One is the shining beacon of anything that's been made by Disney or Lucasfilm for the last 5-6 years. Let's just keep on it with that. Okay, anyway. So, talked about the core ensemble, doing side characters. Saul Guerrero, wonderful side character. You get some kind of understanding of his motivations. I think having him in Rebels has helped too, but he's quite interesting in what is going on with him. He's kind of seen as an extremist, and he's actually probably gets more exposition from the people around him than the people that are with him. But then you finally get the sense that he's basically a hard ass, and he's basically a zealot. But he's willing to basically accept the end of the fight when it comes to him. And of course, he goes out as one of the first major characters in the movie to die. But it was quite interesting in how that all works. For him, and so what his motivation is that he hates the Empire. You can definitely get the sense of that. It doesn't really explain why, but he definitely believes that things could be a lot better, and he really cares for Jyn Erso not to be your own woman and to be somebody who does not look for the boot of the Empire. What is it? How do you feel about? It's the line. How do you feel about all these Imperial flags when you look up? And Jyn says it's not bad if you don't look up, and that's something that he clearly doesn't like, and he's trying to bring Jyn into being somebody greater than herself and what she actually is. Clearly helped raise her, clearly helped engage with her and make her into the woman that she was, and so at least in this character, quite a lot. So anyway. Is there any other characters I want to tag on? We've tagged the Core 6, Krennic, Galen Erso, Saul Guerrero. Who else? Of course, there's 2 Vader scenes in here. They're pretty good. The hallway scene is just awesome for a lot of people. I think it's a little overrated, and it's not that it's visually it's amazing, especially when it was done like 3 weeks before the movie release. They're just like, hey, let's put Vader in here. But his interaction with Director Krennic sees Vader at his peak, where we actually start to see Vader operating in a more modern sense, to where he's just not force-choking everybody to the point of death. He's practical. He's reasonable. He's like, I want results. If you don't, suffer. And he actually kind of teaches a lesson to Krennic all at the same time. A lot more of a Vader that I actually like, far more than the Vader that we got during the prequels. Or not the prequels, the original series. And I hate to say that, but Rogue One actually seemed to convey Vader as more of a character than all 3 of the original ones, and that's only in the few moments of screen time he's had. But you actually see character presence, and that I want to talk about that. Let's do that for a minute. The problem with Vader in the original trilogy is that he is a force of nature, And he's bad for badass sakes, which is cool and it works, does its own thing. But he's not really a character. You don't see the limits of his reign, and whenever anyone disappoints him, he just fork chokes people out and kills them. You have the Admiral, who Palion takes over from, and you also have Captain Nita, which is force choked in Empire. I mean, Vader just isn't much in the way of a major character, and I'm largely talking about him in Empire because that's where he's at his best, in terms of best movie quality, showing what he's capable of, and you also have I Am Your Father, and so he's kind of played as just the stoic force of nature. The first movie's kind of largely among that same plot as well. Vader's he has a large presence on screen, but outside of the presence that he has on screen, or while he's there, is that he doesn't have the character that really drives it. And of course, that kind of changes in Revenge of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi. Pardon me. I'm jumping dimensions here again. Quite good on Return of the Jedi. It conveys him more as a character, and that's kind of like what we see in Rogue One, is that more of a character instead of a force of nature. And it's unfortunate that basically that movies 1 and 2 really overshadow him in 3, because the problem with 3 is that he kind of flips. He no longer maintains the massive presence on screen, 1, because you see him a lot more, but 2 is that he's not an overall badass because you completely lose the motivations in what he's doing. Before the Emperor shows up, he's largely just understood he's kind of running the show. He's a badass, but then all of a sudden the Emperor shows up, particularly in a massive level, and you see him on screen, and he's not impressive. And you're kind of trying to figure out, it's like, why is Vader following the old dude? And I think a lot of this actually breaks down for a lot of people. Going into Rogue One is that you get both. You get the sense that Vader's in charge. You get the sense that Vader's a badass, but he's also a character. And he's like, look, I'm not just going to kill you. You're being a jackass. I'm going to put you into a box and be like, all right, you fucked up. Now you got to fix it. Rogue One actually kind of balances this out a lot better. And yes, I'm basically insinuating that the original trilogy would have been great if the Emperor hadn't been a part of it, and Vader had been better. Vader had been the sole antagonist from the very beginning. That would have worked a lot more in its favor. So, at least under that motif, Vader had to talk about that because far more interesting in Rogue One than I've seen him in any other presence, which is unfortunate. But you also get the sense that he's capable of as his own, because he can body an entire group of people by himself. So, wonderful things going on with Vader, going on in Rogue One. Everyone talks about that because it really sells him. Really does. So, without further ado, let's talk about the plot. So the plot is this. Right before Episode 4, the Death Star plans are stolen. We pick up with Princess Leia in her ship trying to escape to the rebellion to basically give the information of the Death Star plans to the rebellion. And basically she's intercepted by Vader. Second best Star Wars movie? I don't know about that, but it's pretty good, IPA, and I would love to have you on here to help me review this. But anyway, Star Wars, Rogue One. I'm sorry, I'm going brain dead today for some reason. I couldn't tell you why, but we're here. Anyway, Rogue One, good movie. Talking about the plot, talking about the story. Sorry. So, before Rogue One happens right before Episode 4, Death Star plans are stolen. Gotta get them to the Rebel Alliance. This movie is how the Death Star plans are stolen, and it's fun. Now, the first half is largely just about the setup, and then the prequel of how, like, all these characters and how they are assembled together to actually steal the Death Star planes. And that's actually not a bad story into itself, but largely reflects around Jyn Erso, and then understanding that there are things going on that are far more beyond her control, and that gets into basically her trying to find her father is what that largely comes down to. And they're looking to understand, like, what's going on with what this project is that eventually would be called the Death Star. Anyway, to get into where all of this goes and where all of this ends, what's happening here. is that Jin's trying to find her dad. It's largely implied that eventually her dad has left a critical flaw within this thing that he's building, which eventually be the Death Star. And the only person that can largely find it is Jyn Erso. Okay, that's cool. Great call for a hero's journey, even though you don't really understand that until about halfway through the movie. But it sets character motivation. It says, all right, cool, you're the only one that can make a difference, and I did it because you're my daughter and I love you. Cool, great, fantastic character plot motivation. Let's go. So she has the hero's journey's call, where she has to basically go out and help the rebellion. And of course, she's kind of the rebellious one that doesn't like to be told what to do anyway. She's quite competent, she's quite capable. And so the Alliance kind of fits into her motif, even though, you know, she has to fall into another crew that she wants to tell her anyway. A slightly BS way to manage a massive plot hole, but the only feasible way to manage that, it's not too bad. I don't think it's actually that horrible. It's a nice little motif. It doesn't mean it has to be completely believable, but it definitely works to some degree. You know, I built a weakness in the Death Star. Cool. You know what? That's believable. It's a little bit over the top to some degree because it's still a massive, easy critical weakness, but it works. Anyway, so he's basically rigged a certain part of the Death Star to fail, and when it blows, it'll blow the whole thing straight to hell. Jin's the only one who can find it, and so Jyn and a few other people realize what they have to do after about two-thirds or halfway through the movie is, hey, they got to go to Scarif, they got to get the plans, and then they got to send it off to the Alliance. She asks for help. She's pretty much abandoned by everybody because she's just brand new to the party. Most people don't believe her or care, but it's the few people that decide to go about it. And she, like, on her hero's journey, this truly shows, like, what people need, in my opinion. And granted, it's fiction, it's motif, right? But at least for me, is that I feel that people really call upon themselves when they have responsibility, when something is asked upon them to be greater than what they are. And so in one of the rebellion's darkest hours, where they're finding out that the Death Star is real, that it can wipe them all out, all bad things can happen, is that all of a sudden somebody who has been down on her luck, who has been hiding in the corner and hiding in the shadows for a while, now has a mission, now has something to live for beyond herself. And because of that, she is the one that preaches to the rebellion, this is when we need hope. This is when we need to be the best that we can be. And a lot of people can't really follow with her because they don't really understand, like, her particular motivations. She's new, but also in the regards of she has to, she has something that she needs to do. They don't necessarily do that. They're just worried about survival and finding the Empire. They don't have that call of responsibility that failure is not an option. But, and this is where you get heroes. This is where you get people who are great, that are remembered for being greater than themselves, and, you know, heroes of the hour, heroes of their day. Is that she gives the hope speech. A few people listen, most don't. She says, "Fuck it, we're going anyway." And so a few people that the core ensemble that have kind of just built out a connection with her, like, all right, cool, we'll go help you. Because you follow the leader, if you will. A lot of people are like, all right, cool, I'm not. A lot of people would be like, no, I'm not about that. Peace out. And there's clearly a lot of people that are, but it's one of those deals where she has a mission. She's now She's now friends with all these people, even though it's only been a limited amount of time. They've got nothing else to do. Galen's basically gonna have, or sorry, not Galen. Cassian. This is his life. This is his job, and he could run and he could hide. But he knows that, basically if the rebellion falls apart, he doesn't have anything to live for, and the sacrifices aren't worth it. The Imperial pilot, hey, what's the best way to go against, what is the best way to go against the Empire than fucking helping destroy their biggest super weapon? Sounds great. You've got the K2SO, which is largely of the whole, Cassian, wherever Cassian goes, I go, but he's also starting to appreciate Jyn, and he's starting to show that. You also have the next part, which is, you have the monk and the gun guy. And it's not really sold why they are going outside of the fact that they're friends, and they seem to have a commonality towards those who they bring in their circle or who those are their friends, so that they'll help support them wherever it goes. Now, of course, this mission will result in all of them dying. So, spoilers, if you haven't watched it yet, they're all dead at the end. They will all, like, most of them will die in the pairs that they kind of went in with. So the fighter pilot will die alone. You'll have the gun guy and the monk will eventually die together, or more or less at this relatively around the same time. And then you'll have K2SO die, and then you'll have Cassian and Jin die at the same time. So, but the character motivations are great because she's got a mission. She has something to do. Few people tag along because they know that the back's against the wall. Their failure's not an option. But most of the higher ups are like, oh, we still have something to protect. We need to play this safe. And then people get the call. Hey, Rogue One is on Scarif, and they're taking the fight to the Empire. And a lot of other people follow the leader. The mission is on. And so you get Radis, who's like, no, if these people are going into a fight, I'm sure it's hell not leaving them out. And so, kind of irrelevant. Yeah, fair enough. Anyway, going to where I am, Radis' character, which is a side character, which, not huge, but Radis kind of shows that, hey, look, he's going for the fight. And a lot of the other leaders are like, oh, well, I guess if Radis is going into the fight, then we've got to go in the fight. And so you get the Battle of Scarif, which makes the Battle of Yavin 4 look like a pittance in comparison, because from what you kind of understand, the entire Alliance shows up to this fight. So the entire Alliance, all of their cruisers, most of their starfighters, against 2 Imperial Star Destroyers and a shitload of TIE fighters and TIE flyers, or what is it, TIE Stingers, TIE flyers, whatever, is that, yeah, they go in, and they go into Scarif, which is a pretty secure Imperial world, and they have to help achieve the Death Star plans. Anyway, long story short, all of it culminates on Scarif. At first, everything's going to hell. You got a group of about 20 people that go in and infiltrate Scarif. They cause chaos and confusion, while you have a small infiltration group, our Core 6, really anything, our Core 3, of K2SO, Jin, and Cassian are going in to retrieve the plans while everyone makes a distraction. And of course, they're pinned down. Everything's going to hell. They're fighting. Some people are fighting on the beaches and around these areas, to where everything is going to crap. It looks like no one's going to live. No one's going to survive. And then, just in the nick of time, like heroes do, right? Is that the rebellion shows up in force, in full, and the battle is on. And so reinforcements get flown down the planet. There's a make or break scene wherever they shut down the whole shield array for the planet. Just across the board, just one epic moment from another from this point on, where things get rolling up, get better, and the tone, the journey of this wonderful movie really takes off, and it's absolutely fantastic. To where, within the last 30 minutes of the movie, you're on a roll. It's an action-packed adventure, and while there's not a lot of character moments going in forward, is that overall, yes, we're talking about Star Wars. Good to see you, Operation Batman. It's been a while since we've seen you. Anyway, so overall, finishing out what we're saying, what we started with is this. Oh God, what is going on with my chat? Last 30 minutes is absolutely great. You come in, the Empire, the Rebellion is here. They're fighting against 2 Star Destroyers, which these are not light, and you actually, unfortunately, don't see the power of the Star Destroyers on full display. I would have loved to seen their quad turbo lasers just go, unleash hell on some of these Rebel cruisers, and why the Empire and the Star Destroyers aren't something to be trifled with. You don't really get that. In fact, you see the Star Destroyers get bodied largely by some smaller ships. But the TIE fighters definitely start showing off their capabilities. Now, largely it's because they're swarmed. But, guys, I swear I'm going to mute you in my own chat. Stop it. Anyway, that's why I hate chat. Oh, my God. Anyway, going forward is that the TIE fighters are making a good show of themselves. One, because there's a shitload of them. But 2, you kind of get the sense that they're on a level playing field with the X-Wings and the B-Wings and the Y-Wings and all these other things going on. So it looks like it's a pretty even fight. Looks like it's going back and forth. And you kind of get the sense that the Empire starts getting the upper hand as the as the heroes, or, I'm sorry, as the rebellion is kind of whittled down one by one. And you kind of get the sense that a few times that there's quite a bit more TIE fighters than there are Rebel starfighters, which is kind of impressive, all things considered. But anyway, going forward, finishing all this up, is that the climax is here. What largely happens is they're able to steal the plans. They're able to, they got to figure out that they got the plans. They got to be able to upload them and move them somewhere. And so they find out that there's a transmitter on the planet. They can transmit it up to the fleet up above, because the planet's shielded. And so the transmitter, even at max power, can only get past the shield. That's it. Outside of that, it can't beam it to another place or anything like that. And it's a lot of amount of data. It's the schematics for a Death Star, which is the size of a moon, right? Anyway, or not a moon, but it's the size of, it's a small, it's a space station, relatively large. Anyway, so it's the full schematics for that. Gives everything that it is. That's no moon. Yeah, true. Anyway, so that's a lot of data. You can't just send off a little bit of it, and they don't necessarily know where the weakness is. Right, which is actually revealed in episode 4, is that they had to analyze the data before they understood what the weakness was. Anyway, so they take the data through the briar patch all the way up into the transmitter. They transmit it out. There's a lot of good scenes there. Director Krennic shows up, and of course, eventually he'll die. And then the Death Star shows up and hits the planet right after the plans are transmitted, and of course, this is where everybody who is still alive, which is largely Cassian and Jyn, will meet their end as the base is wiped out by the Death Star laser, which is a relatively good scene and a decent character moment. They don't kiss or anything, which was nice, is that they feel some level of camaraderie and compassion for themselves, for each other, and they'll die in each other's arms, which is nice little motif. Not over the top, but good. So you have that, and then, of course, the story's not over, because now the ships are in orbit. You've taken out the 2 Star Destroyers, the Death Star is here, and now we need to make our escape before everyone gets screwed over. And just as you're escaping, the the Endurance, the Endeavor, whichever, it's the original Star Destroyer that Vader has before the Super Star Destroyer comes out. I keep wanting to call it the Finalizer. It's not the Finalizer, that's the one from The Force Awakens. Anywho, getting back to where I was, yeah, Star Destroyer shows up, and it just starts hammering at the Republic ships, and it shows the Star Destroyer on full tilt. I don't know why you couldn't do it with the first 2, showing them kicking ass, but Vader's Star Destroyer just comes in, all guns a-blazing, and just starts taking out the fleet pretty much by themselves. Anything that's big enough to be hit. Can you retype that? Because that sentence does not make sense. But anyway, what they're largely doing is the Finalizer not Finalizer, god damn it. I think it's the Endeavor, the Endurance, something like that. Anyway, Star Destroyer shows up, Vader's here. Hey, prepare a boarding party. We've disabled the enemy ship. Let's go. Fucking love that they ended the movie immediately before it starts. Largely works. Yeah, we'll get that here in just a second. Flies over, boarding party, you get the Vader scene, and the reason why is they want to make sure that the plans haven't been leaked. They know the plans are on that ship. Long story short, it's downloaded onto the file that we see in episode 4, which somehow this file is the size of a fucking floppy disk, but hey, whatever. Anyway, it goes about. Yeah, I don't know what IPA's problem is, but he's typing as bad as my voice to text is right lately. Anyway, going further, my brain, true. Anyway, going further is what this basically turns into, is that the Empire is trying to get those plans back. They know it's on this thing. Vader is personally on a mission, and the plans get within an inch of him getting it, but somebody picks it up, and what they do is that they've got a ship within the ship, which is Vader's little Corvair, or what is that, or Corellian frigate. Corellian Corvette, whatever it's called. Yeah. Pops out at the end, flies away. And to Vader literally standing in space, looking out. And I'm kind of wondering how actually decent that scene is, because I don't think that Vader's suit actually protects him from space, nor does the Stormtrooper ones. But ignoring that, is that at least going into where we are is, excuse me, at least, yeah, going into where we are, at least where we're at right now, is that you just had the nice scene, the ship flying away, Vader just looking out into space as it flies away, and that's largely seen as the end of the movie, and then that rolls right into episode 4. Works really well. Is it S-grade material? No. It lacks a few character motivations that you really need, but overall, it's not bad. I would say this movie is A tier for me. The reason why it's not S tier is that there's nothing. You don't really want to root for any of these characters. They're kind of bad people. All right. Yeah. Excuse me. They're all kind of bad people. It's a very human. You know what? Maybe I want to change my mind on this. Maybe this is S tier because I don't like Goody Two Shoes characters. They're fucking annoying. But having a character that, you know, tries to make themselves better, these are all what these characters are doing. They're flawed. They're problematic. And so, at least for where I'm at, you know what? Maybe it is S tier. They're not bad people. They're people with nothing to lose. No, I absolutely disagree with this. I think they are kind of bad people, particularly Cassian. Cassian just executes somebody in the first scene that he's in. You get Jin, who has been a runaway for a while, but she doesn't, you know, she's only taking care of herself, which is fine. But she knows how, she has no priorities, no responsibilities, and she basically lives by running away from her problems and everything that's going on. Yeah, kind of bad person, at least by my motif, what I would judge people on. And you know that's a whole other conversation. But you know you got to accept responsibilities where and how they lie. The two characters, the monk and the monk and the gun guy, we're not really sure if they're good or bad character or good or bad people. The monk kind of comes off as good, but I think that's largely just because people have a fascination with like Buddhist philosophy, and for some reason that being innately good when it's really not. It can't be S tier if you didn't feel like it walking away, in my opinion. No. Sometimes you got to think about it. You got to process it. There's some really good movies out there that are like, wow, that's really good. Oh, absolutely amazing. But, I mean, I really love the movie. I just really didn't figure out innately if it was. But yeah, either way, it's A tier. Absolutely. It definitely meets every qualification of that. It's a good movie. I guess the conversation about S tier, in which Madman might have a point, is, okay, cool. Is it that something extra that really makes me love it? And I'm kind of convinced now that to be an S tier movie, you have to be a part of something bigger. You can't be just by your own movie. You've got to be part 3. You've got to be part of an ever-going story where you're really connected with the characters. So Madman may have a point there. Anyway, to finish out my thoughts on this and where we're going, the story is largely good. Cinematography's great. Sound design's great. The characters are good. As far as the quality of the characters. And so, yeah, I didn't necessarily root for the characters. That might be what it makes for S tier. But they're flawed characters, but they're human. It's a very human story. I really like this movie. Really like this movie a lot. And I probably do need to, I think it's about time that I do rewatch it because I'm clearly missing some details that I probably could have added to this review. But that is what it is. This just goes to show that I still remember this movie and care about this movie quite a lot. I remember the planet's name. I remember the characters for the most part, even after a couple years of not watching this movie. So, long story short, very impactful movie, very good movie. If you guys have any questions, feel free to put them up. Otherwise, definitely come check out all the things that I do, whether it's here on Reviews with Tyberius D, or all the stuff I do on Mask Off or Geopolitics. Geopolitics just had the Cold War and World War II, which were history streams that I put in, and I was a lot more coerced for the Cold War, and I was okay for World War II. I got really tired there towards the end. But if you want to listen to me ramble about history, definitely check out on the Geopolitics channel the Cold War and World War II. Those are both really, really good. So yeah. Wait, you didn't watch it before this review? I'm impressed. You're not listening. I haven't watched it for a while. It's been about 2 or 3 years since I've watched Rogue One. Probably been a little longer than that, actually. But yeah. Watch the cinema review of them. CinemaSins review. I've done I I probably need to watch the other reviews for stuff just in case to pick up. I like CinemaSins a lot, and I like Cinema Wins a lot. I think Red Letter Media has kind of gotten their kind of fucked up a lot. What is it, Jump Ball and all them. A lot of the other folks that are, you know, there to do reviews have gotten to the point where they're trying to be overly edgy, and it's driving me insane. Don't be edgy, just give your real takes. Stop trying to act like you're the creme de la creme of fucking movie reviews. You're not, okay? You're just like me. You're just sitting down, you have higher production values. You're not special. Sorry. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to end the recording here. The stream is not over. The Mascot Podcast is about to start here in just a moment. Literally here in just about the next 3 to 5 minutes. So, yeah, I hope you guys are having a wonderful time. I hope to see you guys all very much soon. And we'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one, guys.